Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting source material today, looking at a challenge many of you probably face, getting real, actionable insights from your data.
That's right. And specifically, this material compares two major players, Microsoft Excel and Power BI.
Yeah,
Right.
Excel, everyone knows it, right? It's been the go-to for, well, decades. Calculations, basic reports, it's like the default tool.
It absolutely has been. But what these sources argue, quite convincingly, I think, is that Power BI offers something more, especially when you need to dig deeper than just surface-level numbers.
Right, moving from just seeing data to actually understanding it. So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the key differences highlighted in these sources.
Exactly. We're focusing on why Power BI, according to this material, might give you greater insight and capability for today's data challenges.
And the sources seem to zero in on three main distinctions. Let's jump right into the first one.
Okay, sounds good. The first big area, and honestly, often the first hurdle people encounter, is how these tools handle data volume and data preparation.
Ah, yes, the classic Excel just crashed trying to open this file scenario. I think we've all been there.
Oh, definitely. You watch that progress bar.
Eh,
Or worse, it just freezes.
so annoying.
Very. And the sources really emphasize that Power BI works fundamentally differently here. It's built to access, store, and manage, well, huge amounts of data without hitting those same walls.
How does it manage that?
A big part of it is really impressive compression technology. When you bring data in, say, from text files, CSVs, even other Excel files, Power BI squeezes it down remarkably well within its own engine.
And the sources gave some pretty stark examples of this.
They did. Think about trying to open, say, a 300 megabyte CSV file in Excel. The material points out that for most typical computers, that's difficult.
Yeah, it'll likely choke on it or just won't open at all. You can't analyze what you can't even load.
Exactly. So right away, you're limited. You might have to chop up your data or work with summaries instead of the raw detail.
Right, you lose the granularity.
But Power BI, it's designed to handle these large quantities. The sources suggest you could take multiple large source files, maybe gigabytes worth, connect them all.
And analyze everything.
And the final Power BI file, the .pbx file you actually work with, might only be, say, 50 megabytes.
Wow, 50 megs from gigabytes. That's incredible compression.
It really is. That compression, plus the way it stores and caches data in memory, it's just much more efficient for large-scale analysis.
And the big benefit then is,
You don't have to cut down your data. You don't have
Yeah.
to aggregate prematurely. All the tiny details, every transaction, can live alongside the high-level summaries in the same place.
so you can see the big picture trends on a dashboard, but then click on something and drill right down to the specific records behind it.
Exactly that. You keep the detail, keep the context. And this links into data preparation too, which the sources highlight. Power BI has a tool called Power Query Integrated.
Ah, Power Query, I've heard of that, for cleaning things up.
Precisely. It lets you transform and edit your data before it even gets into your main analysis model. Think about fixing inconsistent date formats or, removing blank rows, splitting columns.
All those tedious cleanup tasks that take ages in Excel.
Right. Changing data types, filtering rows, adding custom columns based on calculations, unpivoting data. You could do all that visually. Plus, it's built for relating data together.
Like connecting your sales table to your customer table.
Exactly. You can easily add relationships between tables, which is fundamental for building a solid data model, maybe using standard approaches like a star or snowflake schema. Makes analysis much more powerful.
Okay, so it helps clean and structure data up front. But the sources mention something even more powerful about this process.
Yes, and this is a huge time saver. Power BI, specifically Power Query, remembers every single cleaning and transformation step you perform.
Remembers them.
Every single one. Changing a data type, splitting a column, merging tables, creating a conditional column, it records the sequence. Then, when your underlying data updates, maybe next month's sales figures arrive.
You just hit refresh.
You hit refresh, and Power BI automatically repeats all those saved steps on the new data. No manual repetition needed.
Wow. So you set up the cleaning logic once and it just runs every time.
Exactly. The material stresses this point. It dramatically reduces or often completely eliminates that painful, error-prone manual rework you often have to do in Excel every time you get updated data.
Okay, so let's connect this back for the listener. Why is this difference in data handling and prep so important?
Well, first, it saves potentially huge amounts of time, right? Time you're not spending fighting with file sizes or repeating cleanup. But maybe more importantly, it lets you analyze your complete data set.
You're not limited by Excel's constraints anymore?
Right. You can finally dig into data that might have been too big or too messy to handle before. Your insights can be based on all the information, not just a sample or an over-aggregated summary. It enables more informed decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got the data in, it's clean, it's complete. What's the second big difference the sources highlight? Something about advanced analytics and trends.
Yes. While Excel can obviously do calculations, Power BI really shines, according to the sources, when it comes to quickly spotting patterns and trends, especially over time. This is largely thanks to its built-in time intelligence features.
Time intelligence. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It's essentially a collection of functions and capabilities specifically designed for comparing data across different time periods. Things like comparing this month versus last month, or year-to-date versus the same period last year.
Standard business comparisons, basically.
Exactly. And Power BI lets you slice and dice massive amounts of data by these time dimensions, and others really fast, we're talking seconds.
And the sources had an interesting point about how this is often done currently in Excel.
Yeah, a rather painful point for many, I suspect. The material mentions that lots of analysts, or even executives, spend hours every month writing and debugging complex Excel macros.
Often using VBA code, right?
Yes, often VBA,
Yeah.
just to get basic time series comparisons like year-over-year growth from large data sets.
Hours every month for that. That sounds inefficient.
It really is, and fragile 2 macros can break easily. The Power BI approach, as outlined in the sources, is much more streamlined. You typically create a dedicated date table, which Power BI can help you generate automatically with functions like Calendar Auto.
So a table with all the dates and related info like month, quarter, year.
Exactly. Then you use Power BI's formula language, DAX data analysis expressions, which has built-in time intelligence functions.
Like the totally TD function mentioned.
Precisely. You might have a basic measure like sum of sales. To get year-to-date sales, you just wrap that measure in the total TD function, pointing it to your date table. Power BI handles the complex date logic automatically based on the context.
So no custom coding needed for these common comparisons. You just use these built-in DAX functions.
For the most part, yes. It's much faster to set up, it's more robust because you're using standardized functions, and the sources argue it leads to more accurate comparisons over time.
And why is getting those trend analyses faster and more accurately so crucial?
Well, speed of insight is key, isn't it? If you can spot a trend, good or bad, quickly and reliably, you can react faster. Better decisions, quicker strategy adjustments. You're not waiting days for someone to wrestle a macro into submission.
Right. It frees up time for actual analysis instead of just calculation mechanics. Okay, so handling big data, easier trend spotting. What's the third major difference highlighted in the material? It seems to be about sharing, security, and the cloud.
Yeah, this is where the Power BI service, the cloud component, really changes the game compared to traditional Excel workflows. How do you usually share complex Excel reports?
Emailing massive files around, usually.
Hmm.
Or maybe putting them on a shared drive or SharePoint.
Right, and you run into version control issues, email attachment size limits, people looking at outdated files. It can be messy.
Definitely. So how does Power BI change that, according to the sources?
It provides a central, secure place to publish reports. The Power BI service, hosted by Microsoft in the cloud. You build your report in Power BI Desktop, then publish it online.
And the key thing is the data refresh.
Exactly. Once it's published, you can schedule the underlying data to refresh automatically in the cloud. So anyone viewing the report online is always seeing the latest figures without you manually regenerating and distributing files.
That alone sounds like a huge improvement. No more, "Are you sure this is the latest version?" emails.
Absolutely. But the Power BI service offers more than just hosting and refreshing. The sources emphasize a suite of intelligent features that become available once you publish.
Like quick insights. What's that about?
It's pretty cool, actually. You can point Power BI's cloud algorithms at your dataset, just right-click the dataset in the service, and it will automatically run analyses to find interesting patterns for you.
Without me building anything?
Right. It looks for correlations, outliers, seasonality, changes in distribution, things like that, and presents them as potential insights with auto-generated charts. It can surface things you might not have thought to look for.
Huh. That sounds genuinely useful. What else is available in the cloud service?
Natural language query, or NLQ. This is a big one, especially for less technical users.
Asking questions in plain English.
Exactly. On a dashboard in the Power BI service, users can often just type a question into a box, like, what were the sales for the West region last quarter? And Power BI tries to understand the question and generate the answer, often as a visual.
Wow. So an executive could just ask the dashboard for the number they need without having to find the right chart or filter.
That's the idea. It makes the data much more accessible and can save developers from creating dozens of visuals just to anticipate every possible question.
That's pretty powerful. What about tailoring the view for different people?
That's where personalized dashboards come in. Users can pin individual visuals, charts, tables, KPIs from different reports they have access to onto their own personal dashboard space.
So I could grab a sales chart from the sales report, an inventory gauge from the operations report.
And maybe a key metric from finance, yeah.
Hmm.
And arrange them all on one screen that makes sense for your role. You use the little pin icon on a visual. It gives users control over their view.
Nice. And the sources also mention alerts.
Yes, you can set up alerts on specific visuals on a dashboard, usually KPIs or gauges. So if a number crosses a certain threshold, say inventory drops too low or sales exceed a target, you can get an automatic email notification.
Handy for keeping track of critical metrics without constantly checking the dashboard. You manage those alerts right from the dashboard visual itself.
Exactly. So you've got easier sharing, auto refresh, these intelligent features like quick insights and NLQ, personalization alerts, and then there's security. The sources make a point about row-level security.
RLS. That sounds important. How does that compare to Excel?
Well, controlling who sees what data in Excel often involves creating multiple versions of the same file, filtering each one differently, and carefully emailing the right version to the right person. It's risky.
Yeah, you could easily send the wrong file with sensitive data.
Precisely. RLS in Power BI lets you define security rules within the single report file. You create roles like North Region Manager or Sales Rep, usually in Power BI Desktop, using simple DAX filters.
So the rule might say, if user is in North Region Manager role, only show rows where region is North.
Something like that, yes. Then, in the Power BI service online, you assign your actual users or security groups to these roles. When that user logs in and views the report, Power BI automatically applies the filter. Everyone sees the same report, but the data is filtered securely based on their role.
And the sources said this is relatively easy to set up, even for non-coders.
Compared to complex solutions sometimes needed in the Excel world, yes, the sources position it as much simpler and more integrated. It significantly reduces the risk of data leakage compared to emailing files around.
Okay, so this third area is really about a more modern, secure, and intelligent way to distribute and interact with reports via the cloud.
That's a great summary. Centralized, automated, enhanced with AI features, and more secure.
Right. So this deep dive into the sources really lays out the comparison clearly. We've hit on Power BI's superior handling of large data volumes and its automated data prep.
Its strength in quickly spotting trends using built-in time intelligence features.
And then this whole ecosystem around the Power BI service for cloud-based sharing, automated refresh, intelligent features like quick insights and NLQ, personalized dashboards, alerts, and much simpler, robust row-level security.
Yeah, the overall conclusion from the material seems clear. While Excel definitely still has its place, especially for smaller tasks or individual analysis, Power BI is positioned as delivering deeper insight when dealing with larger, more complex data and the need for rapid analysis and secure sharing.
It allows for faster experimentation using visuals, stats, calculations across data that might just overwhelm Excel.
And the sources suggest that adopting Power BI isn't just a tool change. It can genuinely help push an organization towards being more data-driven, lessening the reliance on IT for every little data pull or report tweak.
Shifting focus from the how of reporting to what the actual insights.
Exactly.
Which really brings us to the final thought from these sources, something for you, the listener, to think about. In today's world, with data everywhere and business changing fast, are you truly getting the most intelligent use out of the data you collect? Are those traditional tables of numbers and massive spreadsheets really giving you the agility and deep understanding you need to evolve quickly?